There we go. Hi, everybody. Good December evening to you. I got to tell you, I had a couple of visitors this week that brought me some very interesting artifacts, so I will have a little bit of show and tell at the end. But before we get to that, we got some slides to work through. So as usual, I'm going to see if I can get this thing going here. Remember to share the screen, and let's get started. All right, now, I don't know how many of you are listening, what volume you have your sound at, and I don't know how this next slide is going to play. If you have your computer turned up really loud, you might want to turn it down just a touch. Ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Resist. We had a little bit of a mystery slash bordering on criminal activity down at the Batavia Wildflower Sanctuary last, actually a couple weeks ago. It was around Thanksgiving. This was what to our wondering eyes did appear, but the mystery actually started off with an email. Dragnet, I don't know how many of you watch Dragnet. My grandfather was a huge Dragnet fan, and that song used to just really scare me. That at the beginning and then at the end, where they had that hammer that would hit that metal spike to put I think it was a Roman numeral at the end. It was very attention grabbing, and it was one of the first things I thought of when I started mulling over this mystery and who the perpetrator might be. But as the intro said, we did change the names to protect the innocent. So here's the email that was with the names that have been changed. It says, they attached are photos of an Ohio Buckeye at the Batavia Wildflower Sanctuary. It is about 12 feet tall, and the branches are damaged all the way up. There are wood shavings all around the base of the tree. Either we have flying beavers or squirrels are going after the buds, or maybe aliens. Do you have any suggestions? I'm worried that this will kill the tree. And this was sent courtesy of the Batavia Wildflower Sanctuary steward that we will refer to tonight as Tara. Anyway, I started mulling over what Sarah said prior to going down to look at that damage, just kind of, thinking about what she said. And honestly, the first creature that came to mind was these guys here. We have so many deer in our area, and they can be quite destructive. This is actually a little video that I took. It was in October. I was over at Norris Woods. I was actually working with Lisa O'Brien, our school programs coordinator. We were putting together some video about energy transfer in ecosystems. And who should come along but Mama? She's the deer that's in the front, and her twins from this year that are kind of looking at us from the back. These guys have been chomping their way through Norris Woods and the surrounding area for, all summer long. And as we get into winter time now, they are going to, their browsing activity is going to become even more obvious. They're big animals and they eat a lot. Now, the fact that Sarah said that the tree was 12 feet tall and had been chewed on all the way up, that didn't really deter me, because I thought, deer can stand on their hind legs and they can browse quite high. This picture in the lower right-hand corner, that's deer browse from up in Minnesota. And you can see those were some arborvitae that the deer just really went after. When a deer feeds, they can really wreak havoc on the plants that they're chewing on. Deer, I think we've talked about this before, deer don't have upper incisors, so when they bite something, they really kind of have to tear it off. This sounds terrible, but I actually had a relative who didn't have any upper teeth, and she too would kind of tear her food off to chew it then afterwards. But the mark is very distinctive. If this had been chewed on, like here we have some deer browse. This was, I think it was a sumac that they took this on, this photo of. The deer will bite and then pull and kind of shred the end of the vegetation. And this picture here on the left, this is what the Ohio Buckeye at the Batavia Wildflower Sanctuary look like. So you can see there's some similarities there, but 12 feet up, that's pretty high. And after I went down to look at where the tree was located, a deer would either have to be able to climb, or they would have to be able to, have a partner and be able to stack themselves in order to be able to reach 12 feet up in the air. So kind of eliminated the deer early on as a suspect. But, I had squirrel on the brain because squirrels, we talked about them a couple of weeks ago and how they are just such good crafters of nests. The nest, some people raise, but these nests are just really well woven together. I think when we talked about the nest, we also talked about squirrels and their ectoparasites, things like ticks and fleas and lice and mites and things that just kind of reside in the squirrel's fur. Well, in having that kind of niggling around in my brain, and then doing some research about Ohio Buckeyes and what might make them so attractive, I came across this little warning from the NRCS division of the USDA, and it says that gives a pretty severe warning right there in red letters. All parts of the plant, its leaves, its bark, its fruit, are highly toxic if ingested. It goes into some detail about the chemicals. The symptoms of this poisoning include muscle weakness, paralysis, dilated pupils, vomiting, diarrhea, depression, paralysis, and stupor. So, wow, that is mighty powerful stuff inside of that tree. And knowing that squirrels are plentiful in the area, I thought, well, maybe they've somehow figured out a way to incorporate the twigs of the buckeye into these drays that they're building at this time of year. And maybe those chemicals are serving as some sort of a repellent. And this isn't a completely off the wall idea. Several years ago, there was a study done of birds' use of cigarette butts in urban areas. Turns out that used cigarette butts, actually, are there unused cigarette butts? I don't know. But anyway, a cigarette butt, the filter there is meant to catch all kinds of tars and some of the nicotine that is in the tobacco. It's meant to kind of take some of that load off of the lungs of the person that's doing the smoking. Well, those chemicals that are retained in that floss inside of the filter do actually have an insect repellent quality to them. Some of you may have made tobacco tea to use on your plants as a natural insecticide. Some birds are now using that too. Again, it's mostly in urban areas. Thankfully, it's in urban areas. I wouldn't like to think we have so many cigarette butts in this world that our natural areas have been invaded by them too. But anyway, birds use cigarette butts to repel insects. On the right, we have a photo. This is a red-winged blackbird nest. I took this picture out at Aurora West a couple of years ago. And it was a low nest. It was about, I don't know, hip high or so. And I looked inside, and at first I thought it was wet. And then I looked a little closer, and you go ahead and look a little closer too. Those little dark bits in the bottom there, they look almost like toasted needles of a fir tree. They're very flat. Well, I pulled a couple out and I rubbed them in my fingers, and lo and behold, they're minty. Those are the dried leaves of mountain mint. And so this red-winged blackbird had taken the extra step of lining its nest with mountain mint. I'm going to guess that there's some sort of repellent quality in that plant as well. And the bird was able to use that to its advantage as it was raising its young. So the idea of weaving a plant with repellent qualities into a nest structure isn't so far off the wall as to be, unthinkable. However, as you'll see this week, if you read Good Natured in the newspaper, we're going to be running part 2 this Thursday. And it turns out that all this research into chemicals and my having squirrel nests on the brain really was a step down the wrong path, a bark up the wrong tree, whatever you want to call it. There was actually a much different thing going on, and it's really cool. I can't wait for you to read it. Can't wait to talk about it next week, but I'm not going to say anything else right now because we're going to move on to our next topic. Since we already had the creepy dragnet music, we're going to stick with the creeper theme for just a little bit. I have to say, these are not my photos, but I did see a brown creeper on Sunday. In my backyard, I have a big, some would say too big, silver maple tree. Silver maples have this wonderful kind of overlapping, shredded looking bark. It has all kinds of cool crevices in it. I was looking out, pretty much every morning I pour a cup of coffee and I stand in the kitchen looking out in the backyard just to see what's going on. And that particular day, there were actually 2 birds on the tree. There was a northern flicker, which was also a joy to see. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that sometime. And then I saw this little bit of motion, and being that it was kind of early in the morning, I thought maybe it was just wind blowing the bark. And then I refocused, and lo and behold, there was a brown creeper making its way up the tree. Now, brown creepers are pretty cool. They're pretty tiny. They're about the size of a wren, but a wren's tail usually pokes upward, and the brown creeper's tail goes downward, so it can use it for balance as it's going in the tree. And then I found this little graphic. Hopefully it'll convey the right information. Depends on how you look at it. I want you to look at the spiral as if it is moving up, because I found if I stare at it long enough, it also looks like it's moving down. But if you can visualize this upward spiraling movement, that is how a brown creeper moves up a tree. And it's a great behavioral trait that can be used for identification because no other bird moves like that. Some of our nuthatches will spiral around a tree, but they're usually facing downward while they're doing it. But the creeper will start at the base of one tree and spiral its way up, gleaning insects from underneath the bark. When it reaches a certain point, it flies down to the base of another tree and does the same thing and spirals its way up. So if you see movement like that and you can't get a good visual on the bird, but you can see its movement, that's good enough to say that you've identified yourself a brown creeper. Now, these birds, here's a look at their range map, and I suppose it's not unheard of to see one around here in the summertime, but they're really here mostly, every time I've seen them, it's been in the winter. And they eat, during the breeding season, all of these different creatures. In fact, I think I put this on the next slide too. Let's go ahead and look at that one. Yeah. So while they're breeding, they need that protein. So they're eating, look at this list: stink bugs, fruit flies, gnats, beetles, weevils, bark beetles, butterflies, moths, lacewings, caddisflies, scale insects, leafhoppers, katydids, flat bugs, plant lice, ants, and sawflies, along with spiders, spider eggs, and pseudoscorpions. And in the winter time, believe it or not, a lot of those animals are still here. Now, there is a note, this was taken from Cornell's wonderful All About Birds website, and there is a note that they might visit bird feeders, but look at these barks. So here's a hackberry. Look at all these fabulous crevices where all of those insects on that list can hang out. Here's the silver maple. In fact, there's even just a little bit of remnant of spider web here, I noticed. All kinds of insects that need a place to overwinter. A lot of insects are able to withstand kind of hypercooling over the winter time, so they don't necessarily have to be free from freezing temperatures. They just basically need a place where they won't get found. So these crevices serve that purpose usually. Not always, not when the brown creeper's in town. This is the thick, chunky, clunky bark of a black walnut. And I want you to look at the beak of this bird. Talk about an exquisite adaptation. This thin, curved bill of the brown creeper can reach into these crevices, whether it's underneath the bumps here on the hackberry, or underneath the flaps here on the silver maple, or in the crevices here of the black walnut. And it can do all that while remaining camouflaged. Now, this was just a little image that I dropped in, but I tell you, this bird, if it wasn't for its movement, it could be sitting right in front of you and you wouldn't see it. Its back has this mottled brown and gray marking to it. It looks a little bit like bark. It looks a little bit like lichens, and it does the trick. These birds are, again, if they're not moving, or if you can't see this really white breast, they can be really hard to pick out. But they're here right now, and yeah, you should keep an eye out for them because they're really cool. So while that was going on in my backyard in St. Charles, down the street in Geneva, I got to thinking about the water tower. Now you might remember, so this water tower is located by the athletic fields for the Geneva High School, hence the Geneva Vikings logo up there on the ball of the tower. You might remember this is the location where the Geneva, or some of the Geneva owls, seems like Geneva's got an awful lot of very prominent owls. These owls nested there last year and raised, this shows one owlet. There were actually 3 owlets in that nest. And as we're slowly inching ever closer to great horned owl breeding season, I thought, I wonder if they're going to be kind of staking out that territory again. Now, you might recall it that great horned owls do not build their own nests. They might be lucky enough to find a tree cavity somewhere, or a broken off tree. They're pretty big to fit in. They have to be a pretty big cavity for them to fit inside the tree. But a snag in the woods, or a nest that was abandoned when the great horned owls, the famous great horned owls of the Geneva courthouse there on 3rd Street, they seem to always move into a squirrel nest. There are a lot of squirrels in downtown Geneva, and it was always kind of a race to see what would happen first. Would the baby owls fledge, or would the squirrel nest disintegrate? Well, I think when we talk about the kind of the Cadillacs of nests for owls to take over, I think the top 2 would be the great nest, and then the red-tailed hawk nest. Now, great blue herons don't nest on water towers, but red-tailed hawks do. And I have to say, I must have totally missed the hawks when they were there, but this is just one heck of a creation that they left behind, and the owls made good use of it. I think I took this photo in March of this year, so the owlets were getting pretty good size. You can see the nest was getting pretty well used. Well, when I went back there the other day to scope out the activity around the water tower, the nest is still there. So I'm going to kind of keep an eye on it to see whether the owls are going to use it again. I also walked around the base of the tower and I found this. On the left here, we've got a pellet, and on the right, we've got a poop. And I don't know what I was thinking or not thinking when I was there, but I totally forgot to use my favorite standard of measure, which is the lip balm. So I kind of tried to scale this the way they were in real life. This lip balm is 2 9/16 inches long. Sometimes I round that down to 2 5/8, but you get the idea. And this pellet was, it was over an inch, but not a whole lot bigger than I would say 1.5 inches, 1 3/4. The poop was smaller than the pellet. And I thought, you know, as great horned owl pellets go, these are kind of small. Here at World Headquarters, I've got a whole box of owl pellets that I've collected here and there. Here's the same lip balm, and here's an owl pellet. Now, a couple of differences. Let's go back for just a second. This pellet had fur in it, but not a whole lot else. And when you think about how a hawk tends to eat, they shred a lot. They'll pull a lot of fur off. They're kind of almost picky eaters. You know, they want the meat, but they don't tend to swallow all the bones. And then the bones that they do swallow, a lot of times end up getting mostly digested. So a hawk pellet isn't going to have the greatly obvious bones and teeth that you'll see in an owl pellet. That's why in science class, if any of you are dissected or know someone who dissected a pellet, it's an owl pellet, not a hawk pellet. They both are capable of making them, but the owl pellet is, because of their digestive system, is the pellet that's going to have all the cool parts in it. So I'm thinking that the hawks, and this, I took this picture this summer. I was walking over between the athletic fields with my new puppy. I was one of those people, I got to thinking, is this hawk eyeing my puppy? I always kind of laughed at that notion until it happened to me, but I actually picked little Boker up so he wouldn't get swooped at. So the hawks are still definitely in the area, and I'm pretty sure what I found the other day was a hawk pellet, not an owl pellet, but it's still an area I'm definitely going to keep an eye on, and I will report back to you to see if there's activity of an owly nature as we get into their breeding season, which starts next month in January. So I was doing some research for something else, and I came across the story of the spitting spider, and I just, sort of assumed, well, that's got to be Australia or Africa or somewhere where they have things that spit, because we just don't really have a lot of those sorts of creatures in this continent. Well, I come to find out that the spitting spider is actually pretty common. It's called a cosmopolitan species, which means it occurs pretty much worldwide, and it also has a fondness for basements. So this little GIF here shows you how it hunts. In this particular little video, it's not too successful, but this is a spider that has, in addition to its venom glands on its head, it also has silk glands. So it can spit silk that is sticky and will trap its prey. So this is a little fruit fly, and I think we've seen enough of its failed efforts at trying to feed. Let's go to this slide. This tiny little spider spits this webbing out, and it lives around here. There's records of spitting spiders throughout Illinois, and I have set it as a goal to see if I can find one. And I'm going to ask you to see if you can find one too. They're very small. In fact, as I was learning more about spitting spiders, I also found this cool graphic. Did you know that this on a U.S. penny, on the back of the penny is Lincoln Memorial. These columns are 1 millimeter apart. I thought that was so cool, because I'm always looking for ways of measurement, ways of conveying, and since we don't use the metric system too often here in the United States, but most scientific references use millimeters and centimeters. I thought this was a pretty cool find. Anyway, 3 to 6 millimeters. So 3 to 6 columns on the Lincoln Memorial on a US penny is how big this spider is. Now that does not include the legs. The legs actually are quite long. This is a very slow moving spider, and it doesn't see well either. It's kind of interesting too. It only has 6 eyes instead of 8, which is most of our spiders around here have 8 eyes. Notably, the brown recluse spider has 6 eyes. These guys, they are not related, but most of our spiders around here have 8 eyes. And so this spider, it's not really geared up too well to hunt by sight. It uses those long front legs to kind of sense movement of nearby potential prey items. And then when it thinks it's found one, it spits that web out in that zigzag pattern. So I know I'm going to be spending some time poking around, probably in the basement here at Good Natured World headquarters, because there's some really cool crevices down there. I'm going to see if I can find a spitting spider, and even better, I'm going to see if I can get some video. Don't hold me to it. I'm definitely going to try, and I guess we'll have to see if I'm successful as we go through the winter. So I've got to thank good-natured reader and listener Kim Haig for this. She had sent me the breaking news from the world of shrews. This is a of an Etruscan shrew, which is not native to North America. These guys are over along the Mediterranean and up into Asia. This was an article in Science Magazine, and it talks about how these shrews can seasonally shrink and then regrow their brains. It's a defense that or a mechanism that they use to get themselves through the winter time when resources might be a little bit harder to find. The brain is our most resource-intensive body part. It needs a lot of blood supply. It needs a lot of energy to continue to function. And by reducing the size of the brain, they can reduce their energy requirements. So I thought that was a pretty cool adaptation. I thought, I wonder if if the same thing goes on here in North America, in Illinois, and in Kane County even. So I started doing a little digging, and the first thing I found out was that there is an international colloquium that has been meeting for the last 5 years, all about shrews. The Cericidae is the shrew family. And I also learned that this colloquium was canceled due to COVID, so I don't know if they're going to hold the colloquium number 5 next year again, or if they're going to call it colloquium number 6, if they manage to do something virtually or not, I don't know. But anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. Keep an eye out on late breaking news from them. But I dug up this photo. This is on the top here. This is our local northern short-tailed shrew, and down below it is our local, some people common shrew. It's also known as the masked shrew. And that's my hand, not my lip balm for comparison there. So you get an idea of the size of these creatures. Well, as I was reading about the Etruscan shrew and this whole phenomenon of being able to shrink their brains, and as it turns out, they shrink their skulls too, which is really mind-blowing because we're talking tissue, but bone. It's a characteristic of red-toothed shrews. And I was looking at the specimens that I had, and turns out the masked shrew does not have red teeth. But it's a really cool feature of the short-tailed shrews. Their teeth are red. This is, if we flip back to owl pellets for just a second, if you find an owl pellet and dissect it and you find a skull that has red teeth, well, then you know that you found that the owl whose pellet you found had eaten a short-tailed shrew. So it's kind of this creepy blood red color. And anyway, just that in itself is a cool fact, but then that they shrink their skulls and their brain mass by as much as 20% so they can survive the winter. That's pretty awesome. Now this also, I just found a dead short-tailed shrew the other day. So I don't know if maybe this process isn't quite flawless and maybe some of them die as a result. I don't know that, but this is the time of year when I tend to find dead shrews. So I'll keep an eye out for those as well. And maybe you will too. And while you're doing that, think about them shrinking their brains. Let's see, this would have been last week when we still had temperatures in the 50s, believe it or not. I went over to the native plant garden at Potawatomi. I was actually taking a picture of this river birch because I realized I had no river birch photos. Remember when we were talking about those aphids that fly between witch hazel and river birch? So I went over to get some river birch pictures, and I'm going to see. Now, I told you before to turn your sound down. You might want to turn it up for this. Do you hear what I hear? All the way up. Can you hear that faint buzzing sound? That was very prevalent, and it was a call that lasted. I cut this down so we wouldn't listen to the whole thing. It was almost a minute long. And I'm not real good at identifying insects by their sounds, but I have a hunch that this might have been the variegated ground cricket. This was on December 9th of 2020. So that's pretty remarkable. That sort of sound would still be occurring at this time of the year. And so I made a recording of it. And then that got me to thinking of, here this little guy is hanging on, singing his heart out, hoping against hope that he's still going to find a mate, even though it's getting pretty late in the game. And I thought, what would happen if he was situated in a place that wasn't quiet? I'm going to play this for you. So this is a video I made when I was watching chimney swifts. Uh-oh, hold on. There we go. Okay, so there's a little background noise, but then listen to what happens. This is downtown St. Charles. When I moved from Hickory Knolls Discovery Center down here to downtown St. Charles, where my office is now, I thought people were worried that I was going to miss nature, and I really don't, because there's an awful lot of nature around here. But one thing that kind of gets to me every once in a while is all the noise, the trucks, the cars, the sirens. It is a very noisy place, and I'm lucky that my survival, and we're lucky that our survival of our species doesn't really rely on our being, having to communicate only through sound, and we have ways of reducing that sound. But it can be kind of a problem for our wild friends, birds who are singing. They have to compete with loud noises like that. Certainly crickets and insects that are singing to find a mate, they have to compete with noise like that. Well, as luck would have it, I had a call today from our friend Valerie Blaine. She's the retired manager of environmental education for the Forest Preserve District. And she called to tell me about this podcast. I don't know how many of you listen to podcasts, but this one might be one you might want to check out. The website is Freakonomics.com, and this episode was called "Please Get Your Noise Out of My Ears." And it's kind of neat because it doesn't take a strictly nature view of noise, and they do make the distinction between sound and noise. Noise is unwanted sound, and they made the point that sound doesn't respect barriers very well, and that we don't have ear lids to tune things out. They also, during the talk, they look at the economic impact of noise on workers' productivity. So they're able to apply some numbers, which some money figures to something, to a topic that sometimes just kind of gets sloughed off as, oh, you know, you tree huggers, you granola crunchers, you just, you know, want everything to be quiet all the time. But it's a really interesting podcast that takes a look at the problem of noise pollution from several perspectives. So if you get a chance, check it out, because it's pretty cool. So now, I wanted to make sure we had some time to do the show and tell. Next week, we're going to take a look at the Buckeye perpetrator and find out just exactly who or what that creature was. We've got some interesting news about a local bison. We're going to have some fun with trees and how they grow, and then we're going to play a little game called You Might Be a Naturalist. But I'm going to stop the share now because I've got some things here that I want to show you. Okay, talking about that Buckeye. This is one of the branches that was chewed off. So as you go about solving that mystery, here is a real life example. Now, you know, in talking about how deer feed and how they shred the end of the branch, this is the bud of the Ohio Buckeye, and it's still intact. So I think we've pretty safely eliminated deer from our list of suspects. And then look at, here is the branch itself and how it was chewed away. Okay. I had an email today. Let me see if I can get this so I can read it. But a gentleman, he said he couldn't wait for the big reveal, and he had done some research, and he wanted to know if he could possibly be correct. Let me see here. He says, all right. Hello, Pam. I'm sending this directly to you instead of as a letter to the King County Chronicle, as I don't want to be a spoiler for your next column, just in case I'm right. I'm also going to guess that I'm not the only one trying to figure out what the critter was that chewed up those trees, and I bet you other people have ended up with the same conclusion as myself. It's a porcupine. If I'm right about this, well, I didn't know there were any in Illinois. The searching I did on the internet explained their preferred habitat, and there's not a lot of that left here, especially in our area. But you don't have to go too far north to encounter them, at least from what I've read. Wisconsin has them, and I suppose it wouldn't be too hard for a few to meander down from up there, following the Fox River, once they found that body of water. Anyway, that's my guess. No need to reply, yada, yada. I'll wait for your next article to learn if I was right. Until then, have a great week. So that's some food for thought. Might be something you'd want to entertain. Now, I will say that I've had, on 2 separate occasions, people have called or emailed to tell me that they thought they saw porcupines in the area. Take that as for what you will. I don't know if any of you want to chime in with your thoughts about this, but I know we've been having a lot of fun trying to solve this mystery here within the Park District without giving too many clues away. Anybody want to take a guess as to who might have done this? Anyone? The answer's coming out on Thursday, so you can just keep that to yourself if you want. All right. So the Shrew article was also very timely because on let's see, it was last Friday. I had a visit from Paul Miesler, and Paul is a member of King County Audubon, and he's a fellow nature nerd. who also has a interest and a skill in taxidermy. Now, have I got this out for you before? This is my little jewel case that I keep treasures in. And I keep a mole in there because you never know when you're going to have to show what a mole looks like. Now, this is the mole that I've had for years. It was a study skin that a woman that I used to work with helped me prepare. It was made from a mole that we found laying on the driveway back when I worked at Red Oak. Have you ever seen a mole's front legs? Pretty awesome, huh? Well, the mole, you can see it's getting kind of, patchy, it's losing its fur. Paul gave me a new mole. Well, Paul also brought a new shrew. So this is a little masked shrew. And this is the one I had been using. This was one that I had found years ago, and not knowing how to taxidermy anything, I just let it dry out so that it wouldn't be stinky here in the office, because I get in trouble when that happens. So Paul brought me this, and these guys are everywhere. They're really small, so you're not apt to necessarily see them. See them by themselves. But where I tend to see them is underneath bird feeders. You know how if you feed, if you've got bird feeders, you're going to have empty hulls that pile up beneath, and actually uneaten seed too will pile up underneath the feeder. Well, that's where a whole community of creatures starts to develop. There's insects down there, and also insectivores. And so these guys will come kind of burrowing through, tunneling through, and you'll see the seed hulls and wood chips, whatever you might have underneath your feeders. You'll see those start to move. And that's a sign that you've got a shrew in your area. Now, these guys are also, they're kind of cursed. I know a lot of, myself included, a lot of us would like to have a high metabolism so we could eat whatever we want. Well, there are limits to that. The shrew's metabolism is such that if it doesn't eat about every 15 minutes or so around the clock, it dies. So that can be a curse, as you can well imagine, if they are not able to find enough food, or they, for whatever reason, take a breather. That could very well result in the end of their life. So again, this is the time of year where we find these things. I have found, I mentioned I found one last week. So if you don't see an active shrew, look for dead shrews. Now, when I was talking to Paul about shrews, he talked about that they smell bad. And I think that there's a fair amount of mammals. In fact, when I found this mole years ago, when we pulled the skeleton out, its skull was crushed. These insectivorous mammals, I don't think they taste good to mammals. And I also, well, actually, shrews do release an odor that's supposed to make them unattractive to predators. It shouldn't bother birds, but like owls, they don't have much of a sense of smell, and therefore not much of a sense of taste. But it does effectively deter mammals from eating them. Doesn't necessarily deter mammals from killing them. So sometimes you'll find a shrew on the trail that has died at the paws and the mouth of a predator, but then they spit it out because they don't taste so well. Anyway, Paul is now working on a couple more specimens for us, and we should have those in a couple of months, and be sharing those with you as well. Now, I got one more thing. As I was going through some items here, as I'm still kind of slowly unpacking the office here, I came across some cards that I had gotten a while back, and we're going to do another unboxing. I know last week we had our gifts for nature nerds. Well, someone had given me these, and I actually have not opened them yet. And I thought it would be fun to do this with you guys to watch. These are 3D bird cards, special effect poker size playing cards. And they are the kind of, I remember as a kid having these cards, you know, and you turn them one way and they would have one scene, and then you turn them another way and there'd be another. Well, I'm gonna open these up and we're gonna see if you think they're cool. I can probably set you up with some sources online. Maybe we can play play a couple hands of poker. You can win these from me. Let's see. All right, so let me open these up. These are, by the way, all based on the paintings of John James Audubon. So, oh, look at that, a chimney swift. How cool is that? The two escape. Oh boy, we got some birds. I don't know, you birders are gonna have to help me out here. Looks like maybe a flycatcher of some sort. I don't know. I was gonna guess kingbird, but there's no white band at the bottom of the tail. And you know what? And it's sitting in a pine tree, so no, that can't be it. I don't know what. I'll have to see if there's a field guide in here. Oh, here we go. There's a woodpecker. Is that an ivory-billed? Looks like an ivory-billed woodpecker. All right. I don't know what that one is. Well, this is really the white-throated sparrow. No, I don't know. Let me see if I hold it up. Are you seeing how they move? I'm not much of a poker player, but boy, I can sure get distracted moving these cards around. Here's a condor. Oh, thank you, Kathy. Olive-sided flycatcher. Let's go back. Wow, identifying from a deck of playing cards, that takes birding to a whole new level. We'll do a sandhill crane. Oh, but you know what? The sandhill crane turned into a flamingo. So I guess not all of these are species specific. I can just imagine a bunch of nature nerds trying to play a card game with these cards. I would not be able to track the game at all. Anyway, I'll show you the packaging again in case you're interested. The company that makes it is Kikkerland, Kikkerland, and it's 3D bird cards. If any of you are interested, I could see if I could find you a website or something. With that, I see we've got a couple of chats here. Okay, so Julie points out that her husband also wants to know who is chewing on the bark down at the Wildflower Sanctuary. Kathy pointed out that on the back of a penny, in addition to using the columns as a measuring device, you can also see Lincoln inside, sitting in his memorial. So woodchucks climb trees. Yes, they do, Julie. Thanks for reminding us of that. Woodchucks are also known as groundhogs, although woodchucks is kind of the preferred term here in North America. They've got a whole holiday called Groundhog Day. But I did surprise me that I was kind of new to this field. I was working at Red Oak in North Aurora, probably 2001 or so, and I was walking along a trail, and this big chunky form kind of walked up a tree. It kind of scared me. I guess I'd kind of scared it, but it was a woodchuck in a tree. So interesting guesses from people. Anybody else want to take a stab at the beleaguered Buckeye? No.
Pam, it's Sarah.
Yeah.
I will not reveal the secret. I mean, Tara. I will not reveal the secret. However, I have two questions for you.
Yes.
I need to grow my brain. How do the shrews do it? What do they do to make it grow?
You know what? It's something that they're still studying, that that colloquium on shrew behavior. There's actually they've assigned it it's not Dremel. Let me see if I can come up with it's a gentleman's name. So they've applied a name to the phenomenon, but they still haven't quite figured out the physiology behind it. Yeah, I agree. I could grow my brain several sizes. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's quite known yet. Just like when they discovered that flying squirrels fluoresce at nighttime, they figured out that they do it, but they haven't figured out why.
All right, so my other question is, we were at Peck Farm today. We were walking with our doggies, and we kept finding cigarette butts all through the prairie. It was driving us crazy. So somebody must walk the same path every day. I mean, seriously, every 6 feet there was another cigarette butt.
Butt. Oh, that's
so when the birds use them in their nest, do they take them apart, or what are they doing for the
pictures that I saw? No, they were just kind of tucked in, and the study was done in Mexico, so I'm guessing it was Mexico City. And have you ever seen a house sparrow? Of all places, I was at a rest stop on I-55 near Springfield a couple of years ago, and I saw these enormous, I thought actually that it was straw that had blown, from a farm somewhere and just kind of lodged in the tree. And then I looked again and I realized it was a house sparrow colony. And they do use some of them, they will shred to use as insulation, but then they also will tuck the butts around the nest, I guess, just to keep the bugs away. So it's something that I don't know how they figured out that these stinky things people leave behind repel insects, but I know I had collected cigar butts for a while to make that tobacco tea that I mentioned earlier, to use as insecticide on my plants outside. And Julie, you've commented that so in the Wild Rose neighborhood of St. Charles, there is a black deer. Have not heard about that. Love to see a picture. Maybe I'll go poke around there. I know Lauren McKinsey, who used to teach at Wild Rose School, she was not able to join us tonight, but I'll let her know about it too. And maybe she's pretty familiar with the deer in that area. I will tell you that there have been some complaints arising about the number of deer in that neighborhood and nearby developments. And I suppose if you've got that many deer in one place, sooner or later, a genetic blip like that is going to occur. But yeah, I'm going to go see if I can. Julie, have you been able to find the deer? See the black deer yourself? Because that would hasn't shown up in your yard yet.
Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Dave.
Okay. No, I have not heard any other neighbors comment on it.
Okay.
He's a new neighbor.
Okay.
And I have to believe, unless it was burned in the prairie fire when they burned.
Oh gosh.
When they burned the field by our neighborhood. I'm dying to see this mystery deer. So I thought maybe you, of all people, would have heard about it.
No, people do tend to mention things like that. And like sometimes we'll get just a email to the generic park district email in saying, like the white squirrel. That's how we found out about the white squirrel at Potawatomi, that people were emailing us about it. I wonder, because when deer molt into their winter pelage, it is dark darker brown, and I wonder, if maybe in the right light it could look, I don't know if I would call it black. I could see how it might look dark. If you're used to seeing a red, the red.
Well, he moved from Chicago, so I have my doubts, but it did say that there are black deer and they're more rare than albino deer, but they do exist as a melanistic.
I could see how, it could happen, but gosh, Julie, I know you pay an awful lot of attention to the nature in your neighborhood, and if you haven't seen it yet,
well, and I would think other
when I'll
people would
believe
have
it.
commented on it, but that it could be hanging out down in the Timbers Park somewhere for all I know.
Where all the deer hang out.
Yes.
Well, I'll keep my eyes open and my ears open for that too. And if I find out anything, I'll let you guys know.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you. And Diane, you found the 3D playing cards for Kikkerland. And by the way, kicker means frog in Dutch. I didn't know that. So these are Frogland cards. That's pretty good to know. So yeah, another last minute gift idea courtesy of Good Natured. And Chris pointed out, that Pearson Creek Fen is in that general west, near west side area of St. Charles as well. So lots of.
And Leroy Oaks is across the street too. So.
And Leroy is nearby too. Yeah, and there are deer. Like I said, there's some people that are starting to say we have too many deer, and that, of course, people have been saying for years we have too many geese. And what is too many? And who's making that call? It all depends on your perspective.
Well, the McGraw coyote person said that the coyotes are now taking a very high percentage of the fawns.
Oh. Okay.
So I think it's really cut down on the deer population.
So some limiting factors may come into play, huh?
I don't think we have as many as we did 5 or 10 years ago.
And I actually took a picture when I came to work the other day. So here I am, I'm on Walnut Street in downtown St. Charles, and something had dug up the turf in front of the office here. And I swear there was the cloven hoof print from a deer. Now, I don't know, a deer. I know we've had deer in downtown St. Charles before. I looked around though, and I could not find any other places where such a mark appeared. I didn't see any, because we've got a lot of landscaping around the Baker Center that could have been attractive to a deer. I didn't see any, characteristic deer brow. So it could have just been something else dug and it happened to leave a mark that looked like a deer. But I'm gonna keep my eyes open down here too, because it's the time of year when they're out and they're moving around. Their breeding season is wrapping up. Pretty soon the males, the bucks, are going to be dropping their antlers and they're into their winter mode. But, all right, so black deer out by Wild Rose. We'll be keeping our eyes open for those too. Anybody else? You have something you'd like to add?
Pam, I did see many years ago a deer running across 31 towards the building you're in now.
Okay.
At 2 o'clock in the morning. Scared the bejeebies out of me.
Susie.
Yeah.
Out in the streets at 2 in the morning?
No, I was in my car.
Oh.
I don't even remember where I was coming from, but I could hear it, the clap, clap, clap.
Yeah.
And then I looked up and there it was.
Well,
it was a big guy.
Well, there was, and I remember, was it Proud Fox? It was one of the shops that's no longer in downtown St. Charles, and a deer got in there and caused a lot of havoc. And then in downtown Geneva, I remember they corralled a deer in the beer garden. I don't remember if it was Stockholm's at the time or if it was still Dad's place, but there was a deer that was threatening plate glass windows and things in downtown Geneva. And they got it into the fenced in area back there.
I had one that jumped through or jumped over my lilac bushes and ended in the backyard and ended up, I had a lot of grass,
Okay.
tall grass, and bedded down on it. Because I found some of its hair and stuff. It was really, so they're around here, definitely.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I've tried to show you guys photos from my phone before. I don't know how well this will work. If I hold this up, see it. It's not. I'll try. Maybe I'll throw this in the slideshow next week. This is the soil from out in front of the office, and yeah, it's just looking like soil in front of the office. But to me, there is the two toes, you know, from the front of the deer. So it would give me hope. And you know what? By the time I get out of here on Tuesday nights, a lot of times it's getting close to 11 o'clock or so. So maybe I'll take a little stroll around the neighborhood here, see if there's any deer out tonight. That would add a little credence as well. Okay.
Question.
Yes, hey, Silvana.
Hi. I wanted to ask the bird watchers out there, because we have a new bird coming to a bird feeder and I don't know what it is. So at the beginning, I thought it was the red-breasted nuthatch, but this one, it has the stripe by the eyes.
Okay.
But it is all tan. It doesn't have the blue color or the white color. It's just all tan color. It's about the same size as the red-breasted nuthatch. And it looks almost the same, but it has that stripe on the eye. And it's so fast, I have not been able to take a good picture of it.
Oh. Well, that's your assignment for this week, young lady. So tan as in like brown or tan?
Well, let me see if I can share a picture. Am I able to share a picture? Can you?
Yes, Silvana has started. Oh, okay.
That.
Like a Carolina
That was my
Red.
best picture.
What do you think, Birders? Carolina Red?
It has the stripe in the eyes.
Yeah.
I vote for Carolina Wren.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with Carolina Wren.
Thank you.
Which is nice.
The tail hop. Ask her to watch the tail. How it
Yeah, if the
sticks its tail up in the back.
If the tail's pointing up, but yeah, that I can see that stripe that you're talking about. And yeah, that's a great bird to be seen around.
Well, it has been coming to visit for the last few days, and I just didn't know what it was. And honestly, at the beginning, I just thought like, oh, maybe the red-breasted nuthatch changes colors in the winter. I really didn't know. Because he looks so much like it, and he has the same type of behavior. He goes to the same feeder, and he jumps around the same way. He flies the same, you know, it looks fluffy and all that, but I just didn't know. And then the other thing is the red-breasted nuthatch, it's been gone. Like we haven't seen it in the past few days.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I see how that thinking would go. Kathy made the point of Merlin, which is a great, I don't know if you call it an app. I think that's what the kids are saying these days. But Merlin is a great way to have kind of a field guide at your fingertips. And I don't know if that has the same capabilities of like iNaturalist, where you can submit a photo. I downloaded Merlin on my phone, and I found I actually took it off because I was spending too much time trying to figure it out, and I was missing the birds that were in front of me. But yeah, Merlin is very good for. I know Josh over at the Forest Preserve District he should be getting commissions from Merlin, because he's always talking about what a great app it is.
And then the last thing. You were talking about the marmorated stink bug last time. Did you get any more information about what's happening to them? Because we've been looking, and we have Mia still missing in action in a jar. Oh. She is adorable. I hope it's a she, because it's Mia in my house. But we're still like kind of curious about what's happening, because I went online and I went even to the National Geographic, and they have this little documentary about the marmorated stink bug, and they were showing like pictures of people finding them on their toothbrushes because they were looking for, you know, that humidity. So I was wondering if you found anything else out about it.
You know, so after we talked last week, I had put a question on the Insect Spiders of Illinois Facebook, and what I found was that people in this, and this was completely unscientific, because I asked people to respond, you know, are you seeing a lot or not, and if you could also tell what county you're in. And so some people were specific and said, yes, I've seen, you know, 6 since September, and I live in Lake County. But most people were not as specific. 122 people commented, and it sounds as though there are pockets throughout Illinois, like out near the Quad Cities and then in Peoria. People said that their houses are being invaded by them. But around here, not so much. A lot of people said a few random. Kane County, I've seen 2. This is very strange, as I normally see more. I had one wandering in my basement last night from a woman in Mercer County. Hardly any this year in Lake County. Crawford County, which is downstate, I have lots, way more than usual. Come on over if you want some. So no, the long-winded reply there, Silvana, is I don't have a good answer. Somebody joked that we should be, you know, creating, you know, some data out of this, but oh, this woman said, yes, I found some catch and release. I actually believe they're misnamed. I love the scent they emit when they're captured. So yeah, a lot of people have said that they haven't seen them very much around here. Julie, you said you only had one so far. And then again, you're missing earwigs. But I don't have an answer. And it seems like they're still very prevalent in some areas and missing from others. So might be something that a trend will emerge over time, and we'll keep working on it.
We are working on finding a companion, so.
All right.
No,
Right.
can't do
that. Anybody else? If not, I invite you back again next week. We're getting close to Christmas, and I understand if you're going to be having to do some last minute shopping or wrapping, but if you can join us next week for our December 22nd edition of Good Natured Hour, I'd love to see you then. In the meantime, take care, stay well. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Pam.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Pam.
Take care, guys.
Bye.